If you have a Bible, can we go to the book of Matthew? Matthew chapter number 3. Matthew chapter number 3. Matthew chapter number 3. Matthew chapter number 3. We are going to be looking at verse 17. Verse 17. And suddenly a voice came from heaven, saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." In whom I am well pleased. This is a scenario where Jesus was trying to identify himself with mankind. He was trying to identify himself with mankind. By so doing, he came to John the Baptist to be baptized, and John, looking at him, already knowing that this is the Messiah, looked at him and said, "I am the one that is supposed to be baptized by you." And Jesus said to him, "Let it be so." Why? In order to fulfill all righteousness. For me to be identified with man, for me to be able to take up the weakness and the weariness of man, I must identify at every stage which man is supposed to identify with. That was why he identified with us in what? In baptism. So that's what we're not talking about, but what we're talking about is the statement that God made. He said, "This is my beloved Son." The heavens opened. And God said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." In whom I am well pleased. In whom I am well pleased. So God came with an identity. Anytime a man discovers his purpose in God, what happens is that God gives that man an identity. God gives the identity of that man begins to show. And when your identity begins to show, what happens is that heaven begins to announce you. Heaven announces a man that has discovered his or her identity, his or her peculiarity, his or her separation. That is where heaven begins to announce such a man. That is what happens when a man discovers his separation. That's what happens. It's just like Joseph. It took Joseph several years to discover that he was separate from his brethren. It took him several years to discover that the things around him was to carve out his separation, carve out his niche, carve out his differences, his difference.